Anyway, that's why that date went bad. I don't think I'm going to hear from her again. Are you recording this?
No, you sound different.
I am different. I'm not Joe. Well, in an official capacity, I'm Joe, but more practically, I'm Brendan McGinley, and that is about as long as I can sustain a very bad Joe Dixon impression.
Oh, great. Finally, a podcast with two middle-aged white guys talking about movies.
I mean, it's not that different from the usual format.
Joe abandoned his post, and now gentrification is creeping in.
Hey, first off, that joke would have landed much closer when I actually still lived around the corner from Joe last year. And second, Joe makes more money than I do with a government job, so I can't gentrify with Starbucks locations on a Best Eaten budget. I don't even own a sweater vest like Joe does. They did give me a hand-me-down bowling shirt that I would be wearing if it weren't 4 degrees. Also, our neighborhood had a Starbucks when I moved in, so it was already there. Nestled between 2 recovery houses, it was the least gentrified Starbucks on planet Earth.
I didn't ask you anything about any of that.
Yeah, but... Okay, my point is I buy the Bustelo, okay?
Speaking of destroyed communities, our movie today is Patton.
Romaka, you magnificent bastard, I watched your movie! Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast that looks at old movies and asks, does this still work? I'm Brendan McGinley in the official role of Joe Dixon, and now that I am Joe Dixon, I would like to rescind my stance on The Matrix. The Matrix still rules. I watch it at least once a year, and I always end up impressed by it.
And I'm George Romaka, and today we're discussing Patton from 1970 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com on Facebook, Letterboxd, and Counter Social. Please tell your friends about us and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. You can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. And yeah, one more thing, we have a guest host, former editor and producer of CBS Local's Man Cave Daily, former senior editor at Thrillist and writer at 1-900 Hot Dog and Tasting Table. He is also the author of The Man's Book of the Barbecue. Please welcome Brendan McGinley. So, Brendan, how did you end up sitting across the internet from me?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea where Joe is or what he's doing. I assume it's something important because this is his life. He loves all of you more than breathing itself. He didn't tell me I would have to do so much homework. I thought I was just going to come in and razzle my dazzle. But it's cool. It's cool. I'm not getting paid. I don't mind. It's just a Saturday. You only get what, 2,000 in your life?
Yeah. Joe was at a drag show last night, but that's not why Brendan's here. Because we had that planned for a while longer than... Actually, I'm not sure which one we planned longer ago. But yeah, Joe had work shit. And he doesn't have a kit living with him that he can just have sub in, so he had to call Brendan.
Yeah, I'm basically Joe's kid. Joe hosted the first ever real stand-up open mic I ever did. And I probably still have an email telling me, you better be fucking funny if you come on my show. I am drinking Patton's favorite cocktail, which is terrible. It is a mixture of red and white wine. I just bought a rosé because that's the same thing. With bourbon, lemon juice, and a pinch of brown sugar. I don't know if I can actually blame the cocktail because this is a label called Good Fucking Wine, and it's the most undrinkable stuff I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, when they're trying to be edgy with their name, they're probably trying to make up for the quality.
Yeah, I mean, it was recommended by the clerk. I didn't expect it to be great. I thought it would be finishable. But I thought it was fitting not only to drink it, but I really like the idea of Patton going through Sicily and whatnot, just being like, bring me the rosé. I'll mix it with bourbon.
Horrible drink for a horrible man.
Horrible man. And yet, still a more complex man than I thought going into this movie. So
that is fair. So, Brendan, take us back to 1970.
Dig this, groovy cats. This is the history bit, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. This is the news. This is the history of news and the news in history. September 20th, Richmond Times Dispatch. Bridget the Bull Terrier went to the Nationals. representing Philadelphia's Bull Terrier Club for the spot of Best Bull Terrier in the country, according to the National Competition by the Bull Terrier Club of America. I want to clarify that a different article I found said that there was about 198 of these dogs in America at the time registered. Mm-hmm. But they were a show dog, and they did have to buy this one in Nottingham, which I assume is the original Nottingham.
The one with the sheriff?
Yeah, the Midlands one. So I don't know how many Bull Terriers were actually in Philadelphia, but there was a club, and they sent a very nice dog named Bridget to the Nationals, which could have just been like 50, 20, maybe all 200. I don't know. Dogs. They might have just been the club. It was a lot fewer people back then. So this is obviously the same breed of dog as Willie from the movie. Mm-hmm. And the article mentions that most people have no idea what to call the breed and just call it a Patton dog.
When he came on screen, I'm like, I have no idea what that fucking breed is. I should look it up, but I don't have time to do that.
Because I just looked at it and goes, oh, he's got a Spuds MacKenzie.
Yeah.
Because that was, I've spent my entire life being like, oh, you have a Spuds MacKenzie dog. More recently, when I'd see him, I was like, those bullet head dogs, the dogs with the head that looks like a bullet shape. I thought they were just like a breed of pit bull that had been so messed up by breeding for show.
Yeah.
Like how pugs can't breathe anymore and regular bulldogs can't. So the article from 1970 made the same note and said most people just think it's a pit bull, but they are completely distinct. And I have lived in enough Manhattan neighborhoods now to know that a pit bull just basically looks sort of like a bear trap bullfrog, genetically engineered pug, just spewing out skull bone and jaw muscle the way a great white shark never stops producing teeth.
Okay. That's an interesting description.
They're sweet dogs. They're very sweet dogs.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of pit bulls. They are absolutely just lovable little balls of fun.
Yeah. I mean, their heads are just made for pulling something out of a place it doesn't want to come get out. It's like, I don't know what animal they're supposed to drag out of its lair, but I know I don't want to be it.
Yeah.
The article goes on to say that these dogs fell out of vogue because it was made illegal to trim dog ears, which is obviously an anti-fighting measure and also generally cruel to the dogs, even if you don't fight them, because people started to do it for, that's how the breed's supposed to look. And that's, that's how you exhibit them in show. So, good for the 1970s, starting to care about animals. Also, just for not fighting dogs as much.
Yeah.
Good on them. That's a big thing. Mm-hmm. And then after that, they started breeding them for temperament. And they became really beloved family dogs. And Bridget, who I can only assume is a very good dog, got along very well with a Westie and another dog in the house. Uh-huh. So, all in all, a pretty upbeat story
for a
dog that was afraid of a little British yapper.
Yep. And whose owner was a psychopath.
And whose owner was definitely a sociopath.
At least.
At
least a sociopath.
At least antisocial personality. Shoo. I live to fight. By God. March 15th, the Fresno Bee. This is another kind of upbeat one. I was trying to inject a little happiness before 3 hours of World War II and egotism.
Yeah.
Stanford sociology professor Thomas Martinez and the National Mexican-American Anti-Defamation League's campaign to halt the Frito Bandito ad reached success. I picked this because Patton was nicknamed Bandito, which I then found out very likely came from the fact that he was in a shootout with some of Pancho Villa's men, might have killed one or all three of them, and then strapped their bodies to the hood of his car, taking one of their spurs as a souvenir, which is definitely better than a necklace of human ears, but diminished quite a bit by displaying your enemy's corpses like hunting trophies.
Yes, that's still not great.
Yeah. Didn't make it into the movie.
No.
So that was a thing. Yeah, I tried to go upbeat, and it took a very grim turn.
I mean, they only show him slapping one mental health patient in the movie.
Yeah. I mean, well, to be fair, that guy was a lily-liver coward not fit to sit in this Hall of Honor for the Red Badge of Courage around him. But,
yeah.
This is a little different, because, those guys were dead,
Yeah.
This sociology professor had gone on a speaking tour. It was very well received. This was, peak, sort of like the rise of the Chicano movement and to establish identity and just basically sort of say, hey, you assholes came to our land and declared it part of your country, and now, you're trying to pretend like it's always been WASP America.
Mm-hmm.
Very weird thing to pretend like, the entire western half of the country is just
white people.
White land for white people.
You hear that, Kirsten Cinema?
He was going around just saying, this is a painful stereotype. This is based on within many people's lifetime idea of bandits and revolutionaries, and is among the scant representation of Mexican Americans or Chicanos. And actually got support from Advertising Age, which had not yet started to call itself Ad Age, which I think took them a really long time, considering that's exactly the kind of thing they do, is to look for clever wordplay that would be like, oh yeah, concise truth.
Mm-hmm. Also, Joe, in your fucking face, I did not invent and create an entire web history of adage to prove to you that there was an ad from the Anheuser-Busch thing about life would be weird without beer involving cowboys and yams.
What episode is that?
It's in a post show.
Okay.
I asked him what his favorite commercial was. He had one. Mine involved an Anheuser-Busch ad where it's two cowboys and they're talking about something, and then they crack open a cooler and pull out a yam. And it says, life would be weird without beer. Joe didn't believe me. He thought that I registered a domain, created a website, and decades worth of content for it, just to fool him into thinking that that was a real ad, because he'd never seen it.
Well, that is very much on brand for Joe, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So Martinez went on this speaking tour, and it very quickly drummed up a lot of support. And two stations, one in LA, one in San Francisco, were like, hey, yeah, I guess we should not run these ads that make people feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately received national pressure to put the ads back on. The article doesn't quite specify what quarter it was coming from. It could have been Frito-Lay. It could have been like national headquarter, NBC, ABC, whatever. And I think Twitter has definitely taught us that could easily have just been uninterested parties who stand hard for capitalism and white supremacy and just wanted to come in and say, you don't know what you would do. So
yeah, the same people that object to Washington and Atlanta changing the names of their, sports ball teams.
Yeah, same kind of people who aren't actually
invested,
affected by it either way.
Right.
Unable to see why anyone might be.
If it's not a problem for me, it's not a problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, what do you gain from it? What does this have to do with you? I guess I'm just asking what you think you have to contribute, other than like, and this plays right into a quote from the article, which is, I'll scroll down a little bit. Martinez says, stereotypes are used to bolster the self-esteem of WASPs. Absolutely nothing new in that today.
Nope.
It's just, hey, you got to make other people look goofy to, make yourself feel good. Maybe you're the problem. I think it's relevant for two reasons, although probably a lot of reasons. The two that most jumped out to me were that, right now we're in the middle of Tucker Carlson returning to the M&M's well, and M&M's
because he doesn't get hard by a green-shelled candy anymore. Fuck.
Yeah, so every time there's some rich right-wing guy, or all the people that think if they just, support him hard enough, the success will trickle down. That's just, I see why he does it. Everyone else is just, what do you even care? You didn't care this morning about the M&Ms, and now some guy told you to, and you're moaning about everything going woke and how you can't say anything anymore, and how there's...
Oh, what I love when somebody says that is to ask them just point blank, tell me the words that you think you can't say anymore. Say them out loud.
Well, it's not even that. It's just,
No. Tell me the fucking words, dude. Tell me those words, because when you hear it, you'll know that you're just afraid to be a racist out loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not even like, honest to God, people are more comfortable saying shit that never in the 80s. I remember the 80s, mm-hmm. Stuff's everywhere. I remember I would go play at a friend's house, and a kid's dad would be like, hey, are there like a lot of black kids at your school? And I'd be like, what? Why?
What a weird question.
I'm 7, and I trying to, like, I don't know why that's weird, but I know that's weird. It doesn't seem like I can think of a single reason why you would ask about that isn't like, it's everywhere. It's not any geographic location. It's not any specific economic distribution. There are trends. there are different ways people express that stuff, but people have always been sideways coming in trying to just be shitty.
Yep.
And so, because of that, there are a lot of people that will die on a hill for someone else's corporation as long as it lets them, just tell themselves that, it's that old saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about how much Tucker Carlson personally finds a cartoon candy mascot fuckable or a snack food mascot fuckable. It's about saying, hey, this actually makes me feel bad because it reminds me of all the times in my life that people reduce me to some cartoon or mean idea of me. People do that for everything. People make fun of you for your culture's food or whatever. Like, people will always find something that isn't bad to just be like, It's always been going on. People have always been protesting it. There's nothing new going on here. We're going to have it in 100 years because we're never going to get rid of shitheads. And I liked that they positioned it as a political argument because they were like, if Frito-Lay thinks that it wants to have the only way this cartoon character works is if it's an ethnic stereotype. And therefore, it's a socio-political argument. So if you're going to run these ads, you got to give us 30 seconds to come back and use the equal time laws back when we had an actual FCC before Reagan and the sheet pie and yeah.
Those were the days. Sort of.
Very well, yeah. Nice. Bringing in the All in the Family just for the full. What was the other thing I was going to say? The other reason it was... First was... there's always going to be stands. Oh, yeah. And the second was that, this is what it actually looks like. And, okay. Yeah. So that's that one.
Yep.
And I will leave you on a happy note. It ends very strongly after he removes this symbol of prejudice. The closing line is, "Life is now more meaningful," he smiled. And I thought that was keen.
That was nice.
That was good. And then we'll go light. We'll go very light on the last one. Not just upbeat, but light. April 9th, the Orlando Sentinel. I might do this entire one in old-timey radio guy voice. Santa Fe, and this is the word they use. I mean, it is what it is. Self-identified, or at least media-identified hippie Ulysses S. Grant, claiming to be the reincarnation of the famous general, tries to run for governor of New Mexico, but couldn't or didn't pay the filing fee, so he was denied his place on the ballot. He folded up his formal announcement into a paper airplane and flew it into the state office. I don't know if that's after he failed in his bid or if that's how he
delivered
would,
it.
Send it to their desk. Yeah. I like both. I do like. I gotta say, he seems like
a swell,
one of the more likable,
fun-loving dude. Yeah,
a little bit, right? One of the more likable children of the flower.
Mm-hmm.
So best of luck to Mr. General Grant in his next incarnation. Obviously, vis-a-vis Patton's reincarnation belief. I was a soldier here in the Phoenician army. So
fucking nuts.
I tried so hard because they were in Tunisia. I tried to find something about Carthage. I was ready to go in on Hannibal because I write a comic about Hannibal, but nothing happened in 19. Best I could find was many Carthage, Missouri stories. So that's that.
Alrighty.
That's everything that happened in 1970. Now you're caught up.
Right on.
Also, my parents met, so good on them.
Yeah, that's always good. It's always good to have been born.
Mm-hmm. Is it, though?
No.
I'm not a fan, yeah. Patton did it so many times, there's no point.
In the beginning, the universe was created. This has made a lot of people angry and is generally regarded as a terrible idea.
Generally regarded as a mistake, yeah. Bake us away, hams.
Alrighty. In other people speak, that's, okay, George, tell us about Patton. So this was directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, who also directed Planet of the Apes and a bunch of other shit.
Which would have just been the best if they came at the very last shot of Patton. He just walks over towards the windmill and there's the Statue of Liberty on its side. Genius.
This is based on a biography of Patton written by Ladislas Farago with a screenplay by Francis Ford Coppola and Edmund H. North.
I tell you, I don't know about the other guy, but this Edmund North guy's going places.
North, in particular.
Yeah, he's going north. Through Italy. Probably through the couple of vineyards where they're growing rosé.
Yep.
Yeah, I know rosé isn't a single grape. You don't have to get on me.
Send your hate mail to This won Oscars, lots of them. Best Picture, Best Actor for George C. Scott. According to IMDb, refused to accept the nomination and award because he did not feel himself to be in any competition with other actors. I don't know if that means he felt that his performance was so good that nobody can compare to him, or that his performance wasn't as, taxing or hard to pull off as the other people's. I don't know which one of those it is. Because if it was Patton, it would be the former. I don't know about George C. Scott.
I looked this up. I think this isn't even the first time he did this. It looks like he did it twice.
Oh, so he just doesn't think that acting is a competition.
His response was basically he didn't want to... He's like, if you accept the thing, if you buy into that... He seemed to simultaneously feel that the award shows were sort of a bit of a self-stroking endeavor.
Circle jerk, yeah.
Yeah, and if you accept that about yourself, I think he was trying to sort of draw a line in the sand for himself about staying... It would be weird to accept the award, but not the idea that comes with it.
Yeah.
And then how would he walk around if he was telling himself, well, I'm one of the best actors on the planet, which he was. He's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
So... Great. Data point of 1, George C. Scott, much better person than George S. Patton.
I mean, we've all got our flaws. Well, I mean, I couldn't find what they were, but his ex-wife alleged something about him in her biography. I don't know what. I really don't. I was reading some interview with him, and the interviewer was advised not to ask about it.
Okay.
And then they went to Gallagher's, which is one of the most overrated steakhouses in New York. I said it. I've been there 3 times. I know it's terrible. I want it on the record. Anyway, great place. Mickey Mantle used to drink there. He'd throw wine at waitresses.
And
that part I made.
And then he would smack their asses. Because that's what they did then.
That's probably part and parcel. That's why they call him Slugger.
Also won Best Director, Best Writing, Story, and Screenplay based on factual material or material not previously published or produced.
Seems like an egregious separate category.
Yep.
That's a little bit of a and also.
Mm-hmm. Best Art Direction, Set Decoration, Best Sound, and Best Film Editing. Nominated for Best Cinematography, Best Special Effects, Special Visual Effects, and Best Music Original Score, which was very, I'll say it later.
I can't believe they gave that to DreamWorks instead.
Mm-hmm.
They just knew one day they would be playing that Friend Like Me. They just decided to roll it out early.
For the Golden Globes, this won, again, Best Actor in Motion Picture, which there was no note about George C. Scott turning down, but I assume it happened. Also nominated for Best Motion Picture Drama and Best Director. And as of 2003, this is, as I expected, in the National Film Registry. It certainly seems like a kind of American film.
You know, it's one of those things. It's like, when you make a film about America or about America doing the most American thing, they're gonna go right at you and be like, oh, hey, do we have this? Do you mind?
So blurbs. IMDb says, the World War II phase of the career of controversial American General George S. Patton. Okay.
I mean, also Olympic fencer George Patton, but I guess we're just focusing on the
war. This one. Yeah. So Amazon, interestingly, if you click over to watch this from IMDb, it takes you to the Spanish blurb for Patton. If you go to the English one on its own, it says, multiple Oscar-winning depiction of the controversial World War II U.S. Army commander. Was he a visionary strategist or an ego-driven hothead? Awarded Best Picture and Best Actor for George C. Scott. Blurbs don't usually have the balls to ask the reader questions.
Well, I mean, I think they're describing the question the movie asks.
The Spanish blurb translates into, Patton is a fantastic portrait of one of the military geniuses of the 20th century, and he was the only general of the Allies truly feared by the Nazis.
Which is a way more declarative account.
And much more interesting sounding.
Really?
Yeah.
I would have picked the English one because it's got ambiguity. It's asking you to come to a conclusion and come along with it.
I don't want to do work. I want to watch a fucking movie.
Well, I mean, just saying.
Says the guy who watches movies and then does work to make a podcast about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So characters. General George S. Patton Jr. He's who the movie is about. And if you ask him, he's the reincarnation of every great general that's ever lived. At least that's ever lived in Europe.
He was simultaneously Hannibal and Scipio.
Mm-hmm.
It was a split feat.
If you ask the Nazis, he's their biggest fear and a man out of time. If you ask me, he's an asshole, played by George C. Scott.
I know him from Airplane and Exorcist 3, which I enjoyed so much more than any movie with a 3 in the title. The Changeling, which is an underrated horror movie. Dr. Strangelove, which is an underrated satire that's also a horror movie.
I forgot that we did Dr. Strangelove for the show.
Apparently, he is the only dramatic actor not drafted into Airplane. I just inserted him mentally because he's such a serious actor, and at the exact right time to be in those disaster spoof movies, I thought he was working in air traffic control next to Leslie Nielsen. I was wrong. I left it in there because I own my mistakes.
Integrity move, Brendan. He was also juror number 3 in 12 Angry Men, which we did do for the podcast, but I just realized we only released it for patrons.
See, 2 sets of justice in this world. One for patrons, one for plebes.
That movie was requested by my dad. Then we have Field Marshal Sir Bernard Law Montgomery.
Yes, but it's actually pronounced Sir Bernard Law Montgomery if you do it bad.
But I don't do it right, and I'm okay with that, because I too own my mistakes.
Quite.
He's the British counterpart to Patton, just with more self-control, played by Michael Bates.
Whom I know from nothing, because I have only seen A Clockwork Orange and only part of it for class, so I did not see the part he's in. And I was really hoping he'd been a child actor so I could affect a British accent again and refer to him as Master Bates. Didn't happen for me. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Yep, and I've seen him in A Clockwork Orange also. And then we have General Omar N. Bradley. He's an old friend of Patton's whose temperament is better suited to higher command, played by Carl Malden.
Who apparently did a lot of American Express commercials, but I never seen him. I only know him from that one Far Side cartoon that I had to ask my mom to explain to me. I haven't seen him in anything. I wouldn't know Carl Malden if I watched this movie again.
Me neither. So...
That's not a knock on Carl Malden.
Nope.
He's fantastic. He's got a great... He's just threaded the needle of my pop cultural landscape.
Yeah, when you do this show enough, you realize a lot of them do that. You think you'd seen him and stuff. Nope. Famously, this film begins with a full-screen U.S. flag and someone shouting, "Ten Hut!" And when this film was shown to troops, they would often leap to attention from their seats, not knowing that it was part of the movie.
Oh, man. There's nowhere for me to go with that comedically except to be like, ha, ha, ha.
Stupid troopers, yeah.
You're trying to get me in trouble at the outset of the actual podcast. I guess it was better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
As a veteran, yep. I'll tell you that. Onto the stage struts General George S. Patton. He launches into a speech. He hits on themes that make me wonder just who would like him nowadays. For instance, he says that Americans love a winner and hate a loser, and this would play well to crowds of Trump nuts. He also says that Americans are a team, not individuals, which is strangely collectivist. He unequivocally states,
"The Nazis are the enemy."
And Tucker Carlson would be calling him a tree-hugging hippie for that.
Well, Tucker Carlson can bite me. Mm-hmm. Listen, I don't have to tell you, because you're a military man who spent several years conducting illegal naval maneuvers outside of Indonesia.
Who told you?
Yeah, I know. You can't say. I mean, the military is a collectivist institution that functions because you choose it, right? I mean, that's the secret to collectivist success. If you don't force it on people, they actually will pitch in really hard.
And if you enable them to do it and help them do it, they are more likely to do it. Nothing in this country was built by any one person. But yet we all think
except for that one crank that defaced a sacred mountain to build Mount Rushmore. But yeah.
But even him, the things that he used to do that defacement were provided and built and funded by other people.
Oh, God, the crimes of this nation will never be purged except with blood.
Nope.
If you know where that quote's from. So,
I don't, but I agree with it.
I emphatically agree with it. I guess at this stage, my impression is he's not saying anything that's wrong, but they're doing a great job of showing you why people hate him for saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in. I'm like on board. I know this shot. I've it's one of those things like Citizen Kane that by the time you see it, you've seen it piecemeal from a million Simpsons episodes. Yeah. So I was finally watching that. I was like, okay, you just got 5 more minutes, General.
So was this your first time watching the movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is not up my alley at all. This whole, like, I always thought it was sort of like an Al Bundy kind of meat and potatoes, like people who watch the non-fun John Wayne film are like, yeah, they a little less McClintock and a little more something that's not as good as The Searchers. But I was well, keep going. You keep going and I'll
In 1943, in Tunisia, at Kasserine Pass, we see a vulture on a mountain backed by some patriotic-ish music, kind of like the theme to Police Academy.
Very much like the theme to Police Academy. It made me wonder if that's why, not the commandant, but the twerpy captain was always carrying that cane.
Captain Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see bombed and burned out vehicles. Scattered about are dead troops being looted by locals who don't immediately scatter when a jeep with General Bradley pulls up. An aide has to fire some warning shots first. Bradley inspects the battlefield. A colonel with him says, "Arabs need food and clothing. They strip our dead before we can even bury them." In addition to tons of supplies and equipment, 1,800 soldiers were killed there.
Which I thought was a little unfair because you can't strip the dead after you bury them. Like, you got to get in there quick.
Yeah,
like,
when else are you going to strip them?
I mean, look.
Make them dig them up first?
I don't know what I'm talking about. I haven't been in a field of combat. I don't endorse grave robbing, but there aren't graves yet. Those canteens could carry water. I don't know. I never had my homeland decimated, and then it was like, man, I sure would like some food and bullets. That would be cool. I don't blame these folks.
I'm of the opinion that, I'm an atheist. I don't think there's an afterlife. I think once my brain stops working, there's nothing to care in me anymore. What I'm wearing no longer matters. I don't have dignity anymore. There's nothing to have dignity about. I'm dead. So
exactly,
if these clothes that have bullet holes in them are still better than what these people already have, fucking take them. Go ahead. I don't care.
Keep warm. Yeah. Take my organs. I don't care. I'm not using them. Just plant a tree over me. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had to fire warning shots? I assume not.
No.
You were in the Navy, right?
No, and I didn't even fire live rounds in boot camp. The firing range was being refurbished, so we fired demilitarized M16s, which meant we were playing laser tag with stationary targets.
Nice. Sounds fun.
Mm-hmm. In Rabat, Morocco, before ranks of Moroccan troops in formation, Patton receives a medal from the Moroccan minister. Patton says, "I wish our troops looked that good." I'm not sure what he meant by that, and I don't want to know. He also says that Morocco is a combination of the Bible and Hollywood, and that's why he loves it.
Although, unlike Hollywood adaptations of the Bible at the time, most of the people there aren't white.
Right.
They did actually get North Africans and a more representative depiction than I think a lot of films would have done in a period piece.
Mm-hmm. Bradley arrives at 2nd Corps HQ and exposits that the wipeout was the first run-in between the U.S. and Erwin Rommel, the famed Nazi tank commander. He posits that they need Patton if they are going to win this. Patton arrives and finds dirty, disheveled, demoralized troops. The locals desperately try to give him chickens. The staff at HQ is not ready for him. He tells a soldier sleeping on the floor to go back to sleep because he seems to be the only person there who knows what they are doing. As he settles in, he talks about how everything went wrong at Kasserine. He puts on his 3-star general insignia before the Senate has approved the promotion.
I did not catch that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good character choice there as from a storytelling perspective. And also probably a stupid life.
Yep. He talks about a design that he wanted for tank crew uniforms, and I said I didn't want to know what he thought a good uniform would be. Patton thinks that a lack of discipline was ultimately why we lost at Kasserine. Could it possibly be the lack of leadership? The next scenes are titled, "Patton Shapes Up the Kitchen," "Patton Shapes Up the Barracks," "Patton Shapes Up the Hospital." I don't call that shaping up. I call it yelling at people and being an ogre. I'll just get this out of the way right now. My leadership style is to take care of the people I lead. His is to yell at them until they do what he wants. I do not like General Patton as a person or as a general.
Oh, come on. Don't let me devil's advocate, Patton.
You don't have to devil's advocate him. You can absolutely just agree with me.
But the movie establishes that the base is being slapshod run haphazardly he wants everybody to wear a helmet even indoors, and then is proved right when aircraft fire starts coming in through the walls.
But when he tells the doctor, cut holes in your helmet so that you can use your stethoscope.
Yeah.
I wear a hard hat at work. They tell us you are not allowed to modify your hard hat in any way because it alters the structural integrity of the thing.
For sure.
So him telling the doctor to drill holes in his hard hat is saying, I want to see it on your head. I don't care if it's actually useful. Because he's an asshole.
All right, you win. I'm convinced. You've swayed me. What else can you convince me of?
In the hospital, we get a taste of Patton's cruelty. He sees a soldier suffering from what we would call today post-traumatic stress disorder and berates the kid.
Can we insert the George Carlin bit here where he talks about how it went from like shell shock to like the how it gets a different terminology every war?
I mean, there's something to say to that, right? It's an evolving understanding of battle trauma.
Yeah.
And I'll have something to say about Patton and that evolving idea concept in a little bit.
Well, I think it's something because, it's shell shock says, when every single blast is like, am I dead? Oh, I'm not dead. Repeatedly, for days at length. Shell shock, it's a perfect description. Battle fatigue, still a pretty good description, a little more ambiguous. And then post-traumatic stress disorder, a kinder description, a longer description, but also
with more clinical utility.
Yeah, more clinical utility. And it doesn't say like, look, it's not that the kid is a coward or a weakling. I know. I'm not going to get too far ahead here, but like, I do think it's relevant that at this point in time, this is not a unique thing. Mrs. Dalloway has been written 20 years earlier. Like, it's known that you can only take so many jolts to your attention and your alertness and your self-preservation. All right, continue. I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to defend our servicemen and women. If you won't do it, I will.
He orders the doctor that battle fatigue will not be tolerated, as in you do not admit people with this to the hospital. His approach to mental health care is to yell at the patient. Don't worry, he'll do more than yell later. He tricks his staff into driving him to the ruins of Carthage so that he can give us a taste of his beliefs that he is the avatar of generalhood or whatever. I mean, history lessons are cool and all, but he only ever talks about battles.
Do you think it was weird for him to be like, I was reincarnated as a soldier all the time throughout history, to be like, I was a Carthaginian, and then I came back as a Roman soldier and sacked my childhood home?
I think it's really a lot easier for him than it is for anyone that had to listen to that shit come right out of his mouth and not tell him that, dude, you're fucking nuts.
Yeah, just needed one 4-star general to be like, fuck off.
At a Nazi POW camp, Rommel is handed interrogation reports. He is wary of being overconfident against a new foe, seeing a first battle as an insufficient barometer for predicting future success.
Ah, the desert fox.
A few scenes from now, Rommel will conclude, based on intel about Patton, that he has to strike and annihilate first, else Patton will. It's not wrong.
Strange game. The only way to win is not to fight Patton.
Patton meets with his advisors and the British to hammer out a misunderstanding regarding their lack of air support, just as the British fella is finished saying that they have complete air superiority and that there will be no need to fear German planes. 2 German planes show up to strafe the place to pieces.
The only 2 German planes they could afford for this entire movie. Look, it's obvious. It's got great production value. I'm impressed. I think they at some point used some real shells. But it's funny because every single attack is like the same. I don't know. I'm going to say Stuka and I'm wrong. But like the same 2 German planes coming. Every time it's like these 2. I was laughing because I was picturing these 2 assholes just hectoring them up the coast. Just as they go. It's just us. They can't do nothing. They need us as a final scene where the jackasses get shot.
Patton does the thing that the Joker did in the 1991 Batman movie, but his gun just lacks the comically long barrel.
Or was it a comically short barrel?
At a gravesite for the dead of that attack, we get more of the spiel about Patton being some kind of man out of time. I call hogwash. He studied military history and developed a messiah complex.
Well, I can't imagine. I'm sorry, but you are The idea of a wasp from generations of military families in the United States developing a messiah complex?
No.
I'm sorry.
Impossible.
That's preposterous. As the French would say, ce n'est pas possible de faire. Oh, God, France, I'm so sorry.
Were you just speaking in tongues or were you speaking French?
Well, I actually spoke in the ancient Norman because I myself have been resurrected many times to oppose General Patton and argue for peace.
Fair enough. Patton's aide wakes him to inform him that Rommel is going to attack at El Guitar. We see Bedouins on the soon-to-be battlefield scampering to safety. Here we meet Sergeant William George Meeks, Patton's black manservant/butler soldier, played by James Edwards. I haven't seen him in anything. I don't know if you have either.
I have not, but that was odd for me because I didn't think they were integrated troops until the Korean War. And I was like, oh, cool, good for him. He's like actually up there in oh, he's sort of like an aide. I thought he was like an aide de camp and he was more of a butler or something. He
was an enlisted man.
Yeah.
Like he was army. He was regular army, but he's black and, well, Patton is being dressed because for some reason when you reach a certain level of military rank, you no longer required to dress yourself before you go out to yell at others about how they were dressed by a black man.
Yeah. I went from like, good for him to, oh, okay.
I mean, it's still kind of good for him. It's not the worst gig in the world.
But it's not, the Harlem Hellfighters. Exactly.
Right. So Patton gives himself a pep talk in the mirror. And then comes the first battle of the film, of which there were far fewer than I thought there would be. Patton prepares and executes an ambush, catching and annihilating a German tank battalion.
I do want to say that battle scene was great.
It was.
Held up, slapped. That still works.
That scene still worked. A young officer is killed in the fight. Afterwards, they hold a funeral ceremony, and if they did that for every soldier that got killed, that's all they would ever do.
Yeah, but see, this one's special because Patton knew him.
Yeah.
Promised his mom that I would keep him safe. War is a terrible thing. Let's do more of it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. This is good Patton, right?
There's so many echoes between the Patton and the Joker. Like where Joker.
Where does he get those wonderful guns?
Toys. So where does he get those?
Well, I don't think Rommel had any toys, and if he did, they were probably problematic.
Mm-hmm. But I'm also thinking when he says, "This town needs an enema," right?
This town needs an enema.
This town needs a war. That's Patton's got one tool in his toolbox. It's war.
Also, you nerds, I'm sorry for doing the Mark Hamill Joker when it was obviously the Jack Nicholson Joker quote. Lambast me. I don't care.
We see a newsreel discussing Patton's victory and Montgomery's continued push across Africa. That sentence is one of a number that are almost entirely just me keeping the scene titles that I use to structure the summary. Some scenes, and they'll be more common later, are interesting enough to watch but not describe, like that one.
Yeah, it veers pretty hard between like the character building and but we also need to tell people what has happened in the war and like what stage we're at, where Patton's now situated.
Mm-hmm.
I think that part holds up too. I think it does a good job of telling me, the person who doesn't remember it from my own lifetime, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can follow. Like for a lot of these people, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. One Nazi, Captain Oskar Steger, describes Patton to his superior, Colonel General Alfred Jodl, as a romantic warrior lost in contemporary times.
Which is okay. I'm sorry. If we are doing the Patton Rommel fanfic, I'm keeping that for my slash. You cannot beat him, Captain. He's a romantic warrior lost. I don't know why I went Ewan McGregor. Hold on. Let me do it like a Kolsch. A romantic warrior lost in contemporary times. You cannot beat him. You can only hope to seduce him.
Jodl is skeptical of this. Patton learns that Rommel was not at the battle at El Guitar and meets his new aide, Lieutenant Colonel Charles R. Codman, who will be Patton's sycophantic sidekick for the rest of the film. He's played by Paul Stevens.
He did such a good job. Like I by the end of the first scene, I was like, oh, he got a Smithers.
Yeah.
And by the end, it was like, couldn't be. He's like Panglossian. It's just no matter what. I've been fired. They ordered me to go back to the United States.
No,
they can only mean they want to give you a hero's parade. Sir. No, I know they didn't. But like,
I was yes-anding. I was playing the role.
Eisenhower says you have to get into this rocket. You're going to the moon. They must want you to colonize the moon, sir. I can do it in a Smithers voice if you'd like, but it costs extra.
Codman is a yes man, and Patton likes that. Patton tells him that he wants to attack Sicily, because that's what happened already in history, and he likes history, just like the Nazis said he would. He also wants to throw a fancy party. So he does. He gathers some US and British brass, and after plying them with wine, sells them on his plan to invade Sicily. In doing so, he hopes to be selling Ike, or Dwight D. Eisenhower, on the plan, because he's the guy calling the shots.
Classic British. They're all beer, no wine. Mm-hmm. Can't handle it.
In a restaurant at Allied Force HQ in Algiers, British Field Marshal Sir Bernard Law Montgomery is using his breath on a mirror to sell a different plan to Major General Walter Bedell Smith, played by Edward Binns, who's another juror from 12 Angry Men. And I have to mention that he draws on two mirrors. First, he draws Patton's plan, and then on another mirror, he draws his. And he wipes away the second mirror, leaving the first, and I call that a security violation.
I had the same thought, and I do not have your actual background. I thought that was rather... On the other hand, it was very base. I mean, it was practically a callback to Watchmen. It's like a smiley face.
Ike buys Montgomery's plan. Patton is relegated to protecting Montgomery's flank. He's not happy about this, but says that he'll follow orders, like always. Then the Germans analyze some video of Patton, Bradley, and Montgomery landing in the Gulf of Gala, and it reminded me of the Rainbow Tour scenes from Evita.
Yeah, this is the point where I started to wonder if I could start submitting Patton stories to Reddit's malicious compliance. I'll comply. I'll follow orders.
Except he doesn't.
There's gonna be a crossing.
See, what this is called, this isn't malicious compliance, this is a lie. It's just a lie. He doesn't intend at all to follow the orders.
You know, that is malicious compliance to me. So, agree to disagree. Agree to court-martial.
I mean, of course Patton never intended to go along with Montgomery's plan. Bradley argues with him about it, since it would mean Bradley taking a lot of heavy fire while Patton gets a relatively clear shot up to Palermo. As if to add insult to Bradley's men's future injuries, Patton pretends that messages from Montgomery, clearly ordering him not to do what he's about to do, are garbled, and tells the messenger to ask for another copy.
Classic traffic cop on the edge.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to take a moment to apologize to the listeners. When I put Patton on our list, I was but a young, foolish, bright-eyed podcaster with too few movies seen to really know what the hell I was doing. I knew of the film, I knew who Patton was, I thought nothing of it. It sat on our list, getting bumped down the line for various reasons for 2 years. It wasn't until we'd already recorded its announcement that I looked it up for the first time. I saw it was 3 hours long and wondered just what the hell I'd gotten myself into. Then I thought of poor Brendan, who Joe had roped into this, probably as revenge for some slight from long ago. Most of all, I didn't consider how many maps were involved and how annoying it must be for a listener of an audio media to be hearing names of places that they have almost no reason to know the relative geography of.
I think we get on Fiverr and we hire some Italian translators and we just drop this right in Palermo. And congratulate, enjoy your $500 gift certificate, because my hourly rate, this was work, man.
Yeah.
Last time I was just like watching Strangelove, eating dinner.
That's the difference between being a guest and a guest host.
Take it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
So I'll let some scene titles do the work here. Now, these scene titles are the scene titles like on the Amazon X-Ray. Bradley meets heavy fire in the mountains as predicted on the way to Messina. A group of clergymen join Patton on his march to Palermo. And that sounds way more interesting than it is. I could make an argument by the end of this film that it belongs on God-Awful Movies as a Christian film, but the production value is just way too good for the stuff they normally do on there.
See, I think it's kind of like, I think there's like a secondary, like a B-plot background theme, where like the A theme is like, you know, glory versus responsibility. And I think the B theme is like something to do with like, he's shown as a devout Christian, but he's also walking around talking about how he was reincarnated and how he's, you know, like he has that face off with the priest later about the weather, and the priest's like, I can't pray for you to go murder people. Like, I think there's like a bee theme, and I can't put my finger on it yet. Keep going.
Yeah, he does have a very eclectic theology. The Germans and the British learn that Patton has taken Palermo. Commanders on both sides say, damn. That was funny.
In German, Gotterdammerung.
Mm-hmm. The Palermoans are happy. Patton waxes on about how Palermo is the most conquered city in history. He's greeted by a bishop and gives the guy's ring a big fat kiss. But he's not happy with just Palermo. He's going to push across to Messina. He wants to get there before Montgomery does. He bullies a Marine commander into taking a beach for a landing at any cost. From here, I didn't need to see the rest of the film to know if I would ever end up liking this guy. Nobody can make an order like that and not be a narcissistic bastard. Bradley tries to get through to him, to no avail.
And then his men killed Archimedes. Bullshit.
Patton goes down to the beach to yell tanks across a river before those he's yelling at get strafed by Nazi air fire.
Same Deuce Dukas, dude. Or whatever jet it was on. Not even a jet.
Yeah, they didn't have jets yet.
Prop plane.
A couple stubborn asses, and by that I mean donkeys, are blocking a bridge with a cart full of furniture. Patton's men shoot the donkeys, then throw them and the owner's merchandise over the edge of the bridge. It's cruel, but that's war. Patton was a bastard for it, but there's really nothing else he could do. It was one of the few times I could see that there wasn't a better alternative, though, to be fair, he wasn't supposed to be heading that way in the first place.
That, and I also was like, you got enough guys that they could tow these jackasses against their will. Like, all you gotta do is tie a rope, and like 50 guys, 100 guys, like, you know? And they threw him over. I felt bad for the guy. He lost his jackasses that he was probably liked them. They were probably like members of the family up until they were labor animals. But also, the men could have eaten that, you know?
Yeah.
It's like cruel and wasteful.
Yep.
Oh, God. And then he took the machine gun away from that guy and he shot 100 dogs. I was like, what was the point of that?
And then he was just stepping on kittens like he had his men make a carpet of kittens to walk over. It was bizarre.
And all the war orphans, and he was just like, I'm your father and I hate you before he shot him. Like, what? Hey, I haven't been in war. I don't know, but I can't judge.
Then he takes the Trump Nixon-esque fire the next guy method of moving a battalion to a beachhead. Patton ends up stuck watching the walking wounded, the product of his own meat grinder. It doesn't faze him. Then he visits the wounded in a hospital tent.
Oh, boy.
He appears to get emotional with one patient whose face he can't see for the bandages and oxygen mask.
Oh, God.
He pins a purple heart to the kid's pillow and whispers something into his ear. Any guesses on what he was whispering into the kid's ear? What kind of sweet nothings those were?
Yeah, he actually says, no one will believe you. It's a Bill Murray moment.
I thought he was just bragging like, I can still see, haha, sucker.
I can send you back anytime I want.
Then he goes to berate someone with PTSD, and I had to fast forward. I couldn't even watch that part. It took 5 10-second skips, and from what I saw, he yells, growls, and from the scene description, slaps the kid for having PTSD. No, they didn't call it that, but I don't care. A man in Patton's position with his education about the history of war would have had to deliberately avoid a conclusion about wartime trauma in soldiers. It's not that it was those days or anything. It was a deliberate refusal to face the reality of the human condition because his own fragile ego couldn't stand the idea that he couldn't simply berate reality into acquiescing to his will. I fucking hate that man.
I'm with you. Go forth, I will back thee. My life's been sweet and easy. I was able to watch that scene easily, and I fucking hated that guy. Now, that's the point of the scene.
Yeah.
But nobody gets through World War I and then sees somebody going through the exact same thing in World War II and is like, what is this? You're a cat. Like, that's some you shit that you're bringing into the field tent.
Yeah.
Like, that's on you, dick.
Patton tells Bradley that they finally broke through to the beach, and then he blows off the casualty list.
General Bradley, it's time to consider just how many casualties we'd have if we were still down there crawling along that goddamn road.
You weren't supposed to be on that fucking road!
I don't want to tip my hand to the end of this, but I will say I like that the movie is just both overtly and subtly being like, this fucking guy. Like, this fucking guy. Like, without dismissing him. they're like, Christ, what an asshole.
But I'm not sure it is, because I watch movies for a podcast and I look for details. I hold things in my head for later reference. When you're just watching the movie, it's real easy to not be thinking hard enough about it and just take what he says as, oh no, that he knows what he's talking about. Like, he had to, those people got killed, but he had to get take that road to get it. He wasn't supposed to be there in the first place, but nobody necessarily is going to care or remember that or contextualize it like that.
Knowing writers and watching movies for a living, don't you feel like someone would be like, yeah, you're all cheering for this? And like, isn't half the game burying what you can bury and seeing who gets it?
Yeah, it's one of the worst things about movies.
I think the film, I think it's a clear kind of road marker, if you will, pardon the connected language. Look, I worked in construction. I knew a lot of guys who were really good at a specific job and just really bad at like a bigger long term, they focus on the task at hand. Yeah. Tomorrow,
Mm-hmm.
There was a real that where he's like, we got to get down that road. And it's like, you were the guy that took us on the road. Well, I can't dwell on that now. Like, it feels like kind of like but somebody's going to remember. There's the people who remember the past and look to the future are like.
There's a certain kind of leader that sees it as a virtue to never question your decisions.
Oh, yeah. That's why I brought up construction.
Yeah. Keep moving forward. Whatever decision I made it. There's nothing for it now. Keep moving forward.
Can't unhammer that wall. That's why I know he wasn't Hannibal in a past life.
Yes.
Because Hannibal had foresight.
It necessarily means you don't learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
Because you never recognize an action as a mistake.
Because you never made them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the portrait I had of Patton going into this film.
Yeah. So Montgomery has a victory parade in Messina. Patton gets there first. Fine. Whatever. He has the U.S. Army band playing while the British Army does the same. God, that was irritating. Thankfully, it was only a few bars.
Don't smirk, Patton. I shan't kiss you.
Pity, because I shaved very close this morning in preparation for getting smacked by you.
Tom Zarek says that to Laura Roslin in the 2000s Battlestar Galactica. I never knew it came from this.
I did not even recall that, and I love the 2000s Battlestar Galactica.
On Cloud 9, when they are first putting together the Quorum of 12, and they have the line, and the incoming delegates are greeting the president and whatnot. When Tom Zarek meets Laura Roslin...
Zarek, you piece of shit. Oh.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, that's good. See, I like this is the moment where I was really like, prior to this I was like, this film has more nuance than I expected. This is I was like, yeah, no, I'm enjoying this more than I expected to. And then when they did that, that's when I was like, oh, this film is like because I was starting to wonder if Montgomery was like the antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I was like, no, it's man versus self.
Yeah.
And you don't get a lot of those, and this is a well done version of that. And it wants you to think that Montgomery is his bête noire, but it's not. And it was when they started playing those two tones over each other. I liked it. I felt like I was getting a communique from a time capsule. I
hated it, but that's because I'm a musician, and that kind of cacophony just drives me up a wall.
Oh, man. You should come join my combo. We're a quartet. We jam sometimes. I made that up. I just wanted to seem like I could keep a beat. I'm sorry that it was... sandpaper on your brain.
Patton calls Bradley into his office over a letter from Ike. Personal reprimand. Orders him to apologize to the soldier, medical staff, patients, entire division, and a bunch of other folks one at a time. Patton admits feeling low.
Aww.
Then he goes to pray a rote prayer in a church, because when you're low, reminding yourself that you absolutely must be doing the will of the Creator is a good way to assuage any doubts you have about the ethics of your own behavior.
Mm-hmm.
See January 6th, 9/11, etc.
Yeah, and that's not the only time that shows up in that movie. He's like, God wants me to conquer, therefore this must be God's will. Yeah.
Yep. That apology is as shitty as the ones we hear today.
Oh my God. Oh, it sucked. He brought that dude front and center to call him a coward. Fuck you.
Yep. Tries to absolve himself by appealing to intent instead of addressing the harmful impact of his behavior.
Yeah.
It's like every bad apology.
But the movie knows this.
We hope.
We hope.
And more important, I hope the people watching it know this.
No. Here's the thing. We're reversed on this. I know the movie knows this. I don't have any faith in people.
Yeah, because the real people, when Patton was doing that, the last time that he had to apologize, the soldiers were shouting, "No, General, no," as in, don't apologize.
Yeah.
Because people are generally horrible.
You can't put faith in a bunch of 1970s lead brains. Nah.
These are 1940s lead brains.
Well, I mean, that's more of a collective psychological, like they hadn't been through Nixon and shit. Nixon 1970 was like at the start. But like in 1940, you were like, no, authority, everything's good. No one's ever betrayed me. By 1970, you know some shit. You've seen Kennedy's brain explode. You're just like, no, nothing's right. They seem to be killing all the people who are like, let's be peaceful and share, and then promoting all the people that are like, fuck those guys, let's go kill them and take their stuff. The only explanation in the 70s is we've inhaled a lot of lead fumes, and I'm sorry that happened to you. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say if you're a Gen Xer, sorry. It sucks for you.
New Year's Day, 1944. Codman offers wine and encouragement gleaned from his analysis of Patton's fan mail. Patton opens a letter relieving him as commander of the 7th Army. The sycophant says it's probably because he's getting promoted to commander of U.S. forces in Europe.
Don't you want to see like the Shakespeare script of this movie? Mm-hmm. Like, don't you want to see the bit where Codman's just this like Grima worm tongue? I feel like the larger themes would have just been amazingly lent to a like more poesy. Your mileage may vary depending on your mud pits and your tank treads.
Sergeant Meeks informs Patton that on the radio it was announced that Bradley was promoted to U.S. Commander Europe. I'm enjoying Patton being brought to heel here, but there's over an hour left in the film, and it can't all be downhill. I am not looking forward to the upswing. Then there's an intermission, and I laughed out loud, even though I knew it was coming. I have no idea why I find that funny. I mean, this isn't a theater. I have a pause button. I don't need the film to give me a break 2/3 of the way through, but since it did, I might as well take one, and then the intermission was over as soon as I was done typing about it, so I didn't end up taking a break after all.
I can admire them keeping it intact, but I fast-forwarded through the whole thing, and then it had to, like, bounce back, and, like, why didn't these people in the 1970s anticipate the 15-second rewind? I mean, it's inconsiderate of me.
Mm-hmm. Now we're at Ajaccio, Corsica. Patton, in French, as his aide explains, is paying tribute to the Free French forces under de Gaulle and Leclerc. He goes on.
De Gaulle died in 1970. I didn't put it into the news thing, but it just seemed too big to be relevant.
Mm-hmm. He goes on to kiss more French ass. This is why this movie is so long. This scene, having to listen to everything he said twice, in French and then English. A reporter asks if he really sent a letter to the mother of the patient that he slapped that said, "The yellow rat should have been shot." He replies, "No comment." And I had to stop watching and look that up. I found no record of him having sent such a letter. I did find an entire Wikipedia page about George S. Patton's slapping incidents.
I can read ahead, so I know what's coming, and this is shocking.
He did say some shitty things like, "Shell shock is an invention of the Jews. I can't help it. It makes my blood boil to think of a yellow bastard being babied. And I won't have those cowardly bastards hanging around our hospitals. We'll probably have to shoot them sometime anyway, or we'll raise a breed of morons." In 3 remarks, we get not only anti-Semitism, but eugenics to boot. Yay!
So I'm gonna try and track his thinking without excusing it. I think he's looking at like psychiatry. I think he's coming in through like that vector.
I think he's just a shitty person who says things out loud.
But then he's like dismissing psychiatry through his racist lens.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an asshole because he made it through World War I. He went through the Mexican Revolution that spilled over into the United States and then went like straight into World War I. And I don't know how you get through all of World War I. It's like, wow, this thing seems to be happening to like 25% of people, but not me, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like 25% of people are cowards.
We identified that phenomenon earlier, right? It's not a problem for me, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Common human thought pattern.
Man, we should teach kids empathy.
Yeah.
Right in kindergarten. You already know your colors and your numbers. We'll just teach empathy.
Fred Rogers was trying.
Oh. My actual hero, Fred Rogers.
Mm-hmm. The Nazis learn of Patton's reassignment to Malta and see this as a precursor to an attack on southern Greece. Patton himself is wondering why he's there before he's sent to Cairo. All of this moving around was tactical. The Nazis had become fixated on Patton and couldn't imagine a massive offensive that didn't include him. They'd start prepping for an attack anywhere he went. The Allies exploited the shit out of this. When he goes to Cairo, they start prepping for an attack from there. And in London, Bedell tells Patton what I just said.
I've really appreciated it at this point. Like, he's just a useful monster. Like, They're like, well, you can't let him loose because you'll never get him back. But wherever you put him, they're going to assume that's where you most want to penetrate. So let's keep this guy on ice, which will piss him off and fuck him. And also it'll make the Nazis panic.
It's tactical genius.
Yeah. If it was Ike, if it was some like unsung nameless hero in Ike's entourage or retinue, God bless them. Like, they did it perfectly. Like, we're all here today because someone was like, hey, you know what the Nazis...
Let's fuck with Patton.
He just embodies, like, because they recognize the Nazi, like...
Well, they recognize the Nazi-ish aspects of his personality.
Yeah. The Nazis most recognize themselves in Patton. And then the U.S. was like, well, let them fucking dwell on it. Like...
Yeah.
We'll do tactical shit while they're worried about strategic steamroll. And it worked out great. Unless you were in Saving Private Ryan. In which case, I'm sorry. They should have backed those boats up and turned them around. All they had to do was land those boats backwards. Tactical.
Yep. Patton gets a new dog. Again, this is a 3-hour movie. Shit like this is why. He wants to name it William the Conqueror, but it scares easily, so he calls it Willie.
Appreciate the movie not taking a dig at the French who are kicking ass this year. So, you know, good. Like, he could have switched it from William to Guillaume. Didn't do it.
Patton addresses a crowd of ladies and children in Knutsford, England.
Which is the least English town name. Like, the Ford's there, yeah. But Newt, it's a Viking landing. I don't know where it is. I'm probably wrong.
He says it is the evident destiny of the British and Americans to rule the world. That sounds about right. He doesn't mention the Russians in that speech, which pisses off the top brass. Remember, back then, even the Russians hated the Nazis, and we were on the same side.
Well, also the Russians were like sacrificing 50 to 1.
Yeah.
So I get why they would be aggrieved. But also, you know, Joseph Stalin, maybe kind of a fucking asshole. Used to be a bank robber. Fuck him.
Patton tells Bedell that he didn't make those remarks intentionally and learns that he may be sent home. I mean, it is a little unfair that after telling him that his big mouth is his worst enemy, to nail him on not saying something.
Yeah. This is the part where I bought his argument, because they said in the speech, off the record, he's like, just hang out and guss us up. Like, you're in England, just say nice things about us. There's no Russians there. He says there's no Russians there. There's like no need to like kind of nod to somebody. He doesn't think there's going to be an article out of this. He just thinks he's there to like kind of, you know, kind of tickle the English taint there.
Yep. I love that you pantomimed that too. That was a great little pantomime, tickling the taint.
Subscribe to the Patreon and you can see me with my dexterous fingers, ladies.
That's not true, people. I do not post the videos on Patreon. I don't post the page.
Maybe you should.
Maybe
had Russia doesn't want you to because they're not meant to rule the world. Vladimir Putin, if you're listening, I think our patrons would be very grateful if you fucked off and died.
Yes. Most of our non-patrons, too.
Yeah.
And the hosts.
Yeah.
Patton thinks this can't be happening and that God has his back in achieving his destiny because he's a psychopath. Sociopath, whatever. We get a newsreel talking about D-Day, and then Patton flies into Europe to meet with Bradley. He runs into Montgomery in the French countryside, briefly, so that Bradley can brag about being up against Rommel. Meeting with Bradley, Patton promises to behave himself. He makes it clear that this is about him, his own ego, and his own dreams. That should have been a disqualifier, but whatever, I'm no general. He also promises to keep his mouth shut. We'll see how that works out for him.
It doesn't even last 10 seconds.
The Nazis expect an attack by Patton at Calais, saying that Normandy was a diversion. Hindsight, knowing history, that was a bad call.
This is why you let Hitler stay in power. Because everyone under him is competent. He's only there because everyone else knows what's going on. You got to let him there to go. You got to let him make his pug noises, and then you conquer Normandy, and then it's a clean sweep over to Paris. It's easy. I'm telling you.
And the scene titles are as much of a summary as I need for a bit. Patton pushes across Europe. Patton continues to push across Europe. The Nazis review their casualties. Patton continues his charge across Europe.
Eat a dick, Europe. Patton's here.
The Nazis tally their mounting casualties, and Patton rallies his troops. And no, we don't see any fighting in those scenes. Patton simply moving is apparently killing Nazis by the truckload.
I feel like that's one of the things where everybody watching it knew. Everyone's like, yeah, that's when Patton really got going, you know? Like,
yeah.
But when I was in history class, we mostly talked about Patton in North Africa. So time is weird here. Like, it's very unclear whether this is like, this sequence is 2 months and this sequence is 1 week, you know?
Mm-hmm. Stuck in some mud, soldiers are punching each other out. They needed Patton to tell them how to ungridlock themselves, because nothing can happen without him. He'd do well at the Lincoln Tunnel around 4 p.m.
George, you'd make a good traffic cop.
And Bradley thinks so too. And then politics means Patton's supplies are drying up. And right about here is where I ran out of steam writing a goddamn summary. So all we have left are scene titles.
Speed run, multi-ball.
All right. Patton's tanks run out of fuel but fight a column of Nazis anyway. I read that scene title and thought to myself, of fucking course. But it wasn't a clean victory. Then Patton talks to a colonel about the vicious battle.
I like that scene. I like that he actually kissed the guy.
Yeah.
I thought that showed that this was maybe a comedy and not a tragedy. In the Aristotelian sense, where like he actually was capable of growth. Okay, keep going.
Maybe, yeah. And then Patton talks to Codman about his advance. That's where he's talking about his dreams, you know, which you're only supposed to do with people you're fucking. Then newsreel talking about the liberation of Paris and the advances of Montgomery and Patton. And then Bradley tells Patton to move up north and meet with Bedell. So the Germans mobilize for a winter attack, and Patton predicts they will and instructs his troops in his plan. That is a scene title. I can't believe that was a scene title. That summarized that scene so well.
And then ran the scene.
Mm-hmm. Patton volunteers to travel 100 miles and attack within 48 hours. Patton and his troops begin their march north, hitting resistance along the way. Patton's troops continue north, and he tells Codman how proud he is of them. Patton tells his troops that they'll continue regardless of the bad weather, and asks the chaplain to write a weather prayer.
And this is the point where you, the viewer, are like, tell me about the battling bastards of Bastogne. Let's go over to that movie.
Then Patton reads the prayer over the scenes of battle. And it works.
It works, yeah.
Or it seems to work, right? The weather clears up after that.
There's a dude with a flamethrower.
But I hit that and I'm like, this is a Christian movie. This is obviously a Christian movie. You're telling the priest to write a prayer, and he prays the man of God prays the prayer, you know, the general, and then God clears the fucking weather for him.
But let me point you to another Francis Ford Coppola film called Godfather.
Fair enough.
Which ends with Michael at the baptism promising to raise the kid as a Catholic, and up to, you know, mostly it focuses on like rejecting Satan in all his ways, set over a series of mob hits, which includes innocent victims. I can only see the same sort of like, yeah, this is good. This is fucking good. This trick works. Like that's the exact same adult post-Catholic, or maybe, you know, functional recovering, whatever. Like, it's the same screenwriter and it's the exact same trick.
Mm-hmm.
So deal with that as you will.
Yeah, after Patton continues his drive north now with perfect weather, I just wrote, fuck this movie.
There's like 45 minutes left, but like this is the end of the actual push. Like everything after that is, George, will they judge me right? I think you did your best, Patton. Can you imagine a man like me dying in a pedestrian accident after all I've been through? Like, we're done. Like, we did it.
I mean, there's a newsreel talking about Patton relieving Bastogne. The Germans burn their documents as the Allies enter Berlin. And then the Russians throw a party and Patton attends. And he looks fucking miserable.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's deliberately having as little fun as he can manage.
I think it's because this is, like, pretty solid Cold War era, you know? This is like, are we getting out of Vietnam or what the... There's a lot of this where they need to show, like, this son of a bitch knew what was coming. He knew what they were. This is the Red Army. They slew the... And I don't consider it past their own believability that Patton looked at Russian history and was like, they should never have killed their nobles. But, yeah, this is really kind of the point where it's like, either this is a new thing, or this movie just feels like it's required to get you up to the end, even though the actual story's done.
Yeah. That's definitely what it feels like.
Yeah.
He declines to drink with the Russian general or any other Russian son of a bitch. And then the Russian general says it back, and then Patton finds his sense of humor.
Yeah. But it still sucks. It's still like, to the movie's credit, I think, like, it's still the point where he's like, well, I can at least drink to the fact that we fucking hate each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's interviewed as he rides a horse around a stable, and he says some stupid shit.
And the audio is terrible in that scene.
Yep.
It's terrible.
He says the Republicans and the Democrats are both Nazis, or some shit like that. And he says that Germany formed its political identity with its citizens the same way the United States does with, Republicans and Democrats, which isn't not true.
He was just premature.
Yeah.
Just turned out it was over 50 years and not the next 10 years.
So he gets reprimanded about his statements. And then he's talking to Bradley on the phone, and he forgets to keep his mouth shut, and he says all of the quiet parts out loud. About how he hates the Russians, how he would just be in constant war. Like, hey, give me 10 days and some tanks, and I'll start a war with the fucking Russians, and we'll take them too.
And that's the part where it's like, maybe not wrong. Like, you gotta at least consider he might have saved us a century of grief. Like, obviously you can't betray an ally. Obviously you can't invade a nation that hasn't done anything to you. It's sort of a broken clock situation where it's like, if he had... No more Stalin, never any Putin. But, like, you can't do it. Like, he's wrong to say what he says, but he might have been right about the outcome. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Tell me I'm wrong. I don't.
You're wrong, but I don't know why. I'm not going to back it up with anything.
I'm just saying, like, we haven't exactly had a good century with Russia.
I mean, we haven't annihilated each other. That's good.
Yeah, because of, like, two great Russian generals who are like, no, this is just faulty equipment. The only reason the world still exists is because, like, two different occasions, a Russian general was like, no. It's not because we have great leadership on either side. I want to be very clear. I'm not making the case like we're something better. I'm saying we're just at least not.
We are lucky.
I can't even find a point. Like, we are Iraq's Ukraine. Like, Iraq is our Ukraine. Like, we just an unprovoked attack. I'm trying to find the point where it's like, you know what? Maybe he's just wrong because we're the same. We're just completely the same.
Like, the only one of those pairings that I have is North Korea is to China as Israel is to the United States.
Just a little more class about how they go about it.
It's like they feel like they can do anything, and they will do anything, and they will lean hard into their bigotry while they're doing it because they think that the bigger country has their back. But that's just those pairings.
I think that's the only differentiation is just a little more subtlety about how we go about it.
Yeah.
Like, we have a kleptocratic class that's like sending us into war that we don't want. It's all the same shit. Kill everybody that makes more than 100,000. There, done.
That includes.
Okay, 250,000. If you make more than 250,000.
Okay, yeah. That's good. I'll take that. That's fine.
500,000. That's my final. 500,000.
And this, by the way, this is how the problem starts.
Yeah. I'm not saying like burst into the Russian Tsarist chambers and kill their children. I'm saying.
I'm not saying that.
Name three. I'm just saying he was there. Look, MacArthur wanted to go. All generals are apparently stupid assholes. This is why I'm not campaigning to be a general. I'm making the exact same mistakes. I'm just saying we're there. We know they're going to be a problem. Don't let me be a general. That's what makes me better than Patton, who's like, I'm there. We know they're going to be a problem. Let me in there. That's the difference. That's what I arrive at. That's the solution that I arrive at. It's a bad idea. I just don't go through with it.
Fuck George Patton.
Fuck George Patton.
Who gets relieved of duty.
Fuck George Patton.
By Ike himself. Montgomery gets promoted. Patton says his goodbyes to his team. And then he leaves and talks to Bradley and walks his dog. The end.
And he definitely does not get involved in a completely avoidable accident. I feel like the whole Dunkard incident was like meant to foreshadow that.
The Biff Tannen moment? Yeah.
He was like, can you imagine if I'd been killed by a simple cart? Oh, you. I'm glad the dog's okay.
Yeah.
The dog didn't start any fights. The dog was confronted by an inferior aggressor that it could have easily beaten.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you know what? I don't want this. This would not make... He calls the dog a coward. I say that dog was like, I'm going to live my best life. I don't want to live with like what it knows, what it feels like to have that dog in my jaws. Willie's the real hero of this movie.
Yep.
Well,
so Brendan,
I will tell you.
Does this film work?
It confirms the exact view I had of Patton and this movie, but also added a lot more nuance where I felt like, wow, I don't want to project onto this movie, but I thought there was a lot of times it was like elbowing me as a viewer and be like, can you believe this guy? And it wasn't like a 1980s kind of thing, or it was like, this guy has the audacity to stand up to his boss, where like in the 80s, like the asshole was our hero. There's so many movies where it's like asshole king of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like this was the last gasp of the people that came up before that whole wave, when there was kind of like, yes, they had all of their problems with like completely inexcusable like white supremacy and misogyny and all these things. It's just like, it just takes time to work that out of a society. But there was like a little savoir-faire, and Patton was just, you know, the bull terrier before clipping their ears was illegal. And he was just like, I don't gotta fight you, but if I do, I'll bite your face off.
But he would add to that I do kind of want to fight you. Please let me fight you. Please make me fight
exactly, you. Yeah. He wanted it, and he starts off being like, war is terrible, what a waste of everything, and then he ends, he's like, it's glorious. It's a confession. He's like, I do love it. I love it. I can't let it go. I felt like it did a good job of saying, like, this is how you get to be like that. This is wrong, but we've humanized the guy for whom it's right. So to me, it still works, but like, I tend to come on these episodes and say it still works, and you guys tell me why I'm wrong. So
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong this time, because, you know, recently we did Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde were real people, and Joe and I disagreed on whether or not it worked. My saying it not worked was mostly because it was bad history. It was based on real people, and it painted a very flattering and fun image of people who were really horrible people. This is a better history. Yes, it has to take, it's a movie, right? So it has to take shortcuts. It has to sum things up. There's only one time where he slapped somebody. There were multiple. It left out a lot of some of the really horrible racist and xenophobic views.
Trapping dudes on his car.
Yeah. But I think it's a fairly entertaining and, for its entertainment value, accurate picture of George Patton during the period that it covers. And I think that's important. Like, the fact that it made me angry a lot, that I kept saying, I fucking hate this guy. I was saying I fucking hate this guy, but the movie wasn't telling me not to say that. It wasn't trying to get me to not hate him. It was just presenting it and being like, hey, what do you think of this? And I can respect that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it didn't lionize him. It didn't make him out to be more than he is. And I think for that, yeah, it works. Because I was entertained while it did that.
It's a quality movie.
Yeah.
If I had a grandfather left to watch it with, I would sit down and watch it and not talk about our thoughts after.
Mm-hmm.
George Patton, by God, there was an American. Yeah, he was definitely an American.
Yep. All right. So we have 2 votes for it works.
It works.
So Brendan, plug something.
I got nothing to plug. Go plant a tree.
All right. We will plug the planting of trees.
There's nothing I have to offer you. None of your readers are, none of your audience is comic fans. Just, honest to God, go to 10 Tree and buy a carbon sequestration package.
Right on.
It'd be better. That's the best thing you could do for me.
Plug a tree into the ground. There's a plug.
Yeah. Go invest in one of those war robots that's been repurposed to plant seed darts. One of those drones.
All right. So,
George, what do you have to plug?
I don't. This is the whole show is my plug.
George, what's up next?
Our next episode.
Wait, hold on. No, let me do it in a Baby Huey voice. George, what's up next?
And our next episode is a Patron's Choice episode, and we don't know what the movie will be because our patrons vote on them, and that vote hasn't been finalized yet. If you want to vote but are not a patron, you can fix that by becoming one at patreon.com/DTSWpod.
Sign off, Brendan, : So I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Brendan McGinley, sitting in for Joe Dixon, who will be back next week, period. Thanks for listening, period.
And I'm George Romacka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's no one around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
Okay. I'll drink to that. One son of a bitch to another.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romacka. The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others, because that still works.
Every dollar you spend on the Patreon, 99 cents goes to the Ukraine. That is a promise from Does This Still Work? We're saying it in print. We will put it on the. We will officially commit to that. 99 cents out of a dollar goes to you support Ukraine.
I edit the show. That's not happening.
I'm Joe Dixon.
So when you were giving dollars to the performers, how did you determine how many dollars to give at a time?
Should we be allowed to date our listeners?
What has been your most questionable haircut and or fashion moment?
George, would you rather search for treasure with the Goonies, vacation at the upscale Catskills Resort in Dirty Dancing, or go on a mission from God with the Blues Brothers?
So, Joe, did you have an imaginary friend growing up?
Which live show was more interesting? The one you see in Birdcage, the one you see in Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, or the show you see in Showgirls?